Hello everyone and welcome back to another Strigoi video. Today we're starting a video series that we lovingly call The Road to 1K as a series where we're looking forward to reaching the 1K subscribers milestone. And for that we asked in the Discord what kind of videos you like to see, and instead of choosing only one, we've decided that we'll do all of those videos spread over the periods before we reach 1K. We expect that to happen before the end of August, so you can expect all those videos within that time period. As a first video in that series, we're doing a tier list. I think it's quite useful to do that right now before your new book is announced and released, and we can then compare it to another tier list after the book has been released to kind of see what changes that we've noticed. Usually I'm not a huge fan of tier lists because they're obviously super subjective, and mine will be as well. But specifically because it was requested and because we expect a new book, I think it might come in handy. So without further ado, let's take a look. So here we are with our tier list, and I divided the images below into recognizable categories. So we'll first start off with the Vennari portion of our book, then move on to Scenari. We'll cover Huracan and Alarith next, and we'll end with the more generalized units, spells and terrain piece. As for the tiers themselves, I decided to go with 5 rows, starting from auto-include to better avoid. Now, let me quickly explain how I decided on these 5 tiers. So the auto-include tier means that you would be remiss not to put him in your list, unless you have a very specific idea on what to do with your list. That doesn't necessarily mean that the book forces you to auto-include this. So auto-include kind of means that in my eyes it is such a good unit that you would probably want to put it in your list. Pure quality is almost the same, but it's not as strong, it's not as good, it isn't as serviceable in all of the situations that the auto-include units would be. Good units or just sturdy units that you would use in any list to fill your lists with, but don't necessarily have a major impact on how your games play out. And then we kind of come to the last 2 tiers. Those are the tiers that you might want to think about more heavily before you invest any points in them. Specifically for the niche picks, they might fit your list very well, but otherwise are not really great in and of themselves. And then you've got the last tier, which is the better avoid tier. If I put something in that tier, that usually means it is so bad that you would probably not take it in any list, not even when it's specifically geared towards a specific unit. Okay, so let us start off with the Vennari part, which is obviously the most bulky part of our book, and obviously we need to start with the Wardens in that case. So Wardens were and have been our best unit for a very long time, and I think it's the first time since our book has been released that they kind of lost some of their value, mainly because bounty hunters is a thing now and they die way more easily. The massive downside for us as Lumineth players is that we kind of lost one of our most reliable hammer pieces. So obviously Sentinels are still great hammers, but the Wardens had a specific role in that a unit of 20 could really delete anything that it touched. And now with the new General's Handbook and the new Bounty Hunters Battalion, you kind of want to shy away from big blocks of Wardens, though you still see them popping up in tournaments every now and again. So I would put these guys at good right now. They are still very valuable as screens. We kind of need them to fill our battle line most of the time, but they are not as versatile as they once were. Don't forget, obviously, they are still a good source of mortal wound output, and they are also still wizards, so some books would kill for a unit like this. Now, Sentinels are still super valuable in my eyes. I've seen some lists that kind of shy away from them right now, but I think if you're being very realistic, we still kind of bank on their quality to remain relevant in the current book. So especially lists with Foxes and Sentinels do very well right now, so I would put these at pure quality or maybe even auto-include. Let's put them at auto-include right now because we're a channel that's mainly focused on highly competitive play. And if you're looking at the tournament results right now, there is no list without Sentinels. So let's put them in auto-include right now. Then we move on to Dawn Riders. And before this GHB, I would have put them in a very, very different place. But now they are not just simply good, I would definitely put them at pure quality. Why do I put them there? Well, several reasons. First of all, they are great as bounty hunters. They are also still very good at what they always were good at, and some people kind of overlook them for that, I think. But they're very fast, they cast just as well as our wardens, and they screen better because you can spread them out more easily and they have bigger bases. So they are extremely valuable in that regards. Now with bounty hunters being a thing and them not being Galician veterans, so not giving out battle tactics, they've only gained in momentum and in value in my eyes. Then we move on to the Blade Lords. Now the Blade Lords, I kind of hyped them up a little bit in our Surviving the New GHB on Lumineth, or as Lumineth rather. They are pretty okay as bounty hunters still, but there are so many good options for that role specifically, and they are usually outclassed by Dawn Riders. So unless you really want them for the either the spell ignore, which is kind of useful in a endless spell meta right now, or to protect your Vennari, I would probably not take them. So they are definitely what is a niche pick in my eyes. If you've got a specific plan with them, please do include them. They are pretty good, especially in bounty hunters. But otherwise, I would kind of look elsewhere. Maybe just take normal wardens, or even look at some allies like the Namarti Reavers. Now, what's so great about the Vennari portion of this book is that we're going to have something in all of the tiers. Thank you, Mr. Ballista, for being so terrible, because I can, without any stress on my conscience, put you in the better avoid section. They have the same range as Sentinels, which is super weird. Their damage is way less reliable, and they are just not as useful. They're also not casters, which makes no sense. So, you know, if you look at it as a whole, this unit is just completely out there in its design. It doesn't really do anything better or different from anything else in our book, and that's just massively bad design from my eyes. So sorry, definitely skip the Ballista in all situations, at least right now. Then we move on to our Vennari heroes. Obviously we start with Lyrior, the named Vennari Lord Regent. Now, if you have been in the Discord, you know I'm not a huge fan of this guy. I think he's way too expensive for what he brings to the table. I guess you could argue for more command points on a 2+ and some extra damage, but even in those cases, I would rather take the normal Lord's Regent and maybe take an extra endless spell. So Lyrior is also a niche pick, or maybe even a better avoid pick for me. Let's be kind to our Lyrior lovers right now and put them in niche picks. The Vennari Lord Regent has lost some value nowadays because we're not as focused on a lot of Vennari units anymore. Usually we bank on one big block of Sentinels or on cows. And in either of those cases, you don't really need someone to give greater power of Hish. So I'm going to put him at good. He's still very valuable, he's still a very good hero and an even better general, but he's not as of an auto-include as I would have had him at in the last General's Handbook. Then we move on to everyone's favorite Banner Blades. I wonder how many people have actually ever put this guy on the table. He is even worse than the Ballista in the sense that I don't even know what their idea was with this guy. I don't know what they wanted to do. I think they designed the model and had no idea what rules they wanted for him. So they just dropped some old Warhammer Fantasy rules with the World Banner or whatever it is on him, and then they made them super bad. And he's kind of just out there. He's also not a wizard, which hurts. Make him a lot cheaper, make him a wizard, and there might be some reason to pick him, but right now he's definitely in a void. Definitely. Then the twins. I love the twins. I think they're great. They're just way too expensive, but there's two caster, the only two caster in our book right now. The damage is a little bit more dependable than the Light of Eltarions, but it takes a longer time to wind up. So that's something that you gotta keep in mind, and that's why I don't see why I think you don't see them in a lot of lists. Now, personally, I would still prefer them to be a lot cheaper, and then I would definitely put them in my list, even if they take some time to become useful damage-wise. Just simply because they're such good casters and their teleport is really cool. But right now, I think you probably want to avoid them if you're playing competitive games. Then we've got the Calligrave. The Calligrave was our cheapest caster hero, and that's why he got picked sometimes over the Cathalar. But as of right now, the Cathalar is super cheap, and they're actually, maybe she's even cheaper, 5 points cheaper maybe, than the Calligrave. So he doesn't really serve any purpose. He doesn't do anything for us that we need, and that's not being done by some other unit but better. So sorry, Calligrave, you're also in the better avoid section. Then we move on to the Lore Seeker. Now the Lore Seeker is still a go-to for a lot of players, especially when you're playing the Fox plus 30 Sentinels build that I see doing so well in tournaments. So right now I would say he's pure quality. Personally, I don't play him as often as I should because I don't really like the play style. But you can give him artifacts now and command traits, so that's super cool, and definitely makes him a lot better. So he's definitely pure quality, especially in shooty lists. The Cathalar is just a good pick in my eyes. She's valuable, she's cheap, but she's outclassed in a lot of ways. I think she worked way better when we had a lot of big units, like 20 units of 20 Wardens. But now she's kind of in that middle zone where you're not really sure why you would pick her, but also why wouldn't you? In some matchups she'll be of huge value, and sometimes she'll just sit there and do nothing or just simply die. So she's just a good pick in my eyes. Okay, now we move on to the Huracan part of the book. The Huracan part is probably one of the strongest parts in our book, and that's sadly not due to the next unit that we're discussing. It's not due to the Wind Riders, but it's the foxes that make the Huracan so good. So the Wind Riders, they're just not good. Let's be honest about this. I think you only want to play them if you're very dedicated to the idea of playing a full Huracan list, or if you've trained a lot. And by trained, you can look at this as a gymnast, as in you need to practice with these guys every day, or at least a lot of time during your week before you can actually use this to your own advantage. So I would put these at niche picks, in the sense that you probably don't want them unless you have a very specific game plan. But then we move to our boy Sevireth, and he is by far one of the best things in our book right now. I fully expect them to nerf him to hell, sadly, but he's really good right now. Not only is he as good as any other fox, but he's way more reliable damage-wise, and what makes him really great now is that having a fox, or even having two foxes, makes it very easy to guess certain battle tactics, like moving into your opponent's territory. But making him the general also allows you to complete this one's mine, which is usually a very difficult tactic for us to complete. So I'm going to put him in an auto-include. I don't really see a reason why you would not take him, unless you've got a completely different list design in mind. The normal foxes are close, but they're not auto-includes. They're way more squishy because they can't give commands to themselves. Their bow is only -2 rend rather than the -3 from Sevireth. So I would put them at pure quality. They're very good. I would say they're better than both Dawn Riders and the Lore Seeker. but they're not an auto-include in the way that Sevireth is. So if you have the points and you can choose between one fox, always take the named one. Then we'd move on to the Wind Mage. I see this guy pop up in some lists, and I fully think that's only for one reason, and that's because he can take the teleport spell, the Transporting Vortex. So in that regard, he's pretty good, but in itself, he's kind of useless. So he would be a niche pick. That doesn't make him bad, just to be clear. So not all niche picks are bad picks. You just really need a specific plan with him. And most of the time, if you're taking him just for the Vortex, you really need to pair him up with Zytrek and the Shrine to make his spellcasting a little bit more dependable. Then we move on to the Alarith portion of the book. Now the Alarith portion has seen a glow up with the new JHB, especially because in the current edition, the command trait from Avalenor stacks. The Stone Guard are quite tanky in Geometrica, and the cows do pretty well now because they're not battle line, and thus no Galician veterans. Stone Guard are really good right now, but you do need to take him as 10. Either with mallets or picks. We had a discussion about that in the Discord. Picks still outclass mallets unless you can use them as bounty hunters. So, it has its advantages. But if you pick Stone Guard and you're bringing 15 in one group, so 1 times 15, you really need to bring Avalenor as well. Otherwise, they're not worth it. So I would put them at niche picks because you need to combine them with other kind of build to make him useful. Now the normal cows are a bit better. They need a Stone Mage as a support piece, but they are quite tanky, especially in Geometrica. They're very hard to bring down. Your opponent will have to dedicate a lot of resources to it. And their -2 rend is pretty good as well now. So I'm putting these at good right now. They are not as good as the Wardens, but I would say they are better than a Regent right now. Is that risky to say? Probably. Please don't kill me. Then we move on to Avalenor, and if you see the calculations in the Discord that have been made about this guy, you would know that he outclasses the normal cow, which is strange, I would say, because his hammers are only -1 rend, but he has more attacks, can be more easily buffed, and his command ability is great to combine with the Alarith Stone Guard. I would dare put him at pure quality right now, I think. Probably below the 3 other guys, but he's very, very good. He is also very good as your general, just as Sevireth is, for the same reasons. He can complete This One Is Mine compared to for example, your Lord Regent, who would have a very hard time killing a unit. Now the Stone Mage, if you're bringing cows, you're kind of forced to bring a Stone Mage now. There's no command ability anymore to make him fight at full bracket, and their bracketing really hurts them right now. I think with the new book, when the bracketing gets improved, they'll be even better. I fully expect them to buff Geometrica because it has been looking so bad in the past few months or editions, I would say. And books are written way in advance, so when they printed their book, or at least when they've written it, I am 100% sure that they could not predict that Geometrica would be this popular right now. So I fully expect a Geometrica buff. But right now, you only bring this guy, in my eyes at least, if you have cows. He's not great as an addition to Stone Guard. He's just there to let your cows fight at full bracket. If we're sticking to our order, then I would probably place him before Lyrior, and the Stone Guard should obviously go in front of everything else, because they're also almost a good pick in my eyes. Okay, then everyone's favorite argument is the Light of Eltharion, amazing sculpt, and has very rarely seen the light of day, which is very ironic, and pun intended. He's not a caster, he's very expensive. Even after his points drop, he's still expensive. His damage is not dependable at all. People that haven't played him call him a mini Gotrek. Well, I would rather pay for Gotrek and pay a lot of points extra than paying less for this guy. Right now I don't see him being competitive, even though there was a list that did very well with him in it. So, you know, maybe. Right, I would avoid him, but he's definitely on top of the chain here. So in front of the Ballista. Twins are also in front of the Ballista, obviously, in the Calagravies as well. Okay. If I'm doing the order here, I should probably swap Avalanor to the front as well, like that. Okay. Teclis, my boy, my beautiful boy. I would advise using him while it lasts, because I'm telling you, I'm telling you, he's still in the auto-include section, and you'll see. Prediction, hot take. Everything in that top row is going to get nerfed so hard in the next book, because that's just the way Games Workshop does it usually. I kind of hope that they don't do it as I expect them to, but you know, I think they will. He's so good, and he's only getting better now with the endless spells roaming around. He's very good at casting them, he's very good at denying them. He's such a great pick. He bounces damage back when your units are affected by the endless spells. If you put him on the table and you brought a lot of endless spells and your opponent did as well, you can be sure you get to play with your toys and your opponent won't. Or at least not as much. So yeah, definitely great. Miari's Miari's gang. Miari's purifiers, I think they're called. They are not good. Their spell is bad, their damage is bad, they don't really serve any purpose, and they're so expensive. I just wish Games Workshop made a promise to themselves and a promise to us that all warbands would be equal to a hero in value. Like make them just as good as a let's say a Cathalar, for example, and then we'd be talking. But now definitely avoid these guys. They're so bad. They're obviously in front of the banner blades, but they're even behind the Ballista. The Shrine is very good still. Free command points, rerolls. It's so good. It's so good. I don't understand how we get this thing for free. It has been very impactful in some of my games, especially in non-techless games where you're banking on the teleport from the Wind Mage. You really want to keep him close to this terrain piece, so that's great. Our own endless spells, well, there's one spell that has been swapped out for the others, so the Twin Stones are super bad now. The Sanctum has always been bad, so you kind of want this box now for the Rune of Petrification. Let's just assume for a sec, bear with me here, that we're just talking about the rune. Then I would definitely put it in pure quality. It is so strong, it is incredibly cheap. It does a lot for 40 points. So I'm going to put these at good because the other two are so bad and the rune kind of has to carry them all on his back. So I'll leave him at good. And then we move on to our last picture, because I'm obviously not doing the whole Vennari segment here, but just the Lumineth book as a whole. I think we still have a lot of game. I think we always will, unless they bump up our points heavily, but I don't expect them to. Interestingly enough, most tournament builds have somewhat remained the same, so we still see Techless and the Sentinel build a lot, sometimes a Lore Seeker, a lot of Foxes still. So the two popular builds are still the two builds that you would expect in a tournament scene, and that hasn't really changed with the new JHB. What has changed though, that in more of the middle sector there, you kind of see a resurgence of Eumetrica, or resurgence, I would just say a rise of Eumetrica, because it has never been on the top before. Because the cows, and especially the Stone Guard with 15 and Avalanor's buff on them, they can dole out a lot of damage. So I would I would really urge you to try it out right now. I think they'll be even better in the new book, but try them out right now, just to be sure that you've enjoyed them, just in case they don't make them better. That means our book is quite comfortably sitting in the middle tier, I think. It's good. I still think it's over 50% win rates in most, not highly competitive games, but just normal games. But it does take even more finesse to play with than right now. Mainly because your Sentinels and Warrens are just not as good anymore. They're still very good, but they're just not as good anymore. So the book doesn't really play the Vennari builds as well as it did before. So you need to look for your tools elsewhere. So I would put this our book at good, which is, you know, in the end, the place where you would want all of the books to be. I think we still get a lot of flack, mainly due to some negative reviews from certain YouTubers and from just certain bad experience when our book was released. We've really evolved and people have learned to counter our book, and I think we've kind of passed the point now where everything is just horrible to play against. And you can kind of have a good time when playing against Lumineth, as long as you expect that we do deal mortal wounds and the Fox are hella annoying, but you know, just build some shooting yourself or deep strike and we're in a hell of a lot of trouble. So there you go, that's the tier review. And with that, we've reached the end of the video. I would like to thank you all so much for watching. I have been having a great time. And I really like what a community that we've built, both in the comments and in the Discord. Some of you have been very supportive with my struggle with my voice. That's still going on, by the way. I try my best to keep you guys up to date and to keep the videos going. So please do leave a like. Feel free to share and subscribe, and even join our Discord club. I fully expect us to reach the 1K at the end of August. I'm looking forward to it because that's such a huge milestone for me and Ryan, who've both have been, you know, working hard to make quality videos for all of you. So leave a comment if you've enjoyed this video and let me know what you'd like to see next. See you in the next one. Bye bye.